this evening. To order, please rise to the vote. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with justice. Thank you, call. Roll call of our trustee, Dan. Jennifer. Tony. Here. Stephanie.
Yeah.
I'm here. Ben. Nathan. Here. Fran.
Here.
And Billy. All right, thank you. We'll start this meeting with board comment. If any board member or member of the district administration has public comment that is not related to a personnel matter or an item that's already on tonight's agenda. Okay. We'll open the floor for public comment. This is the time for comment on public matters that are not on the agenda. Public matters do not include any pending legal matters, private personnel issues, or private student issues. Please do not attempt to address such issues at this time. The board cannot enter into a discussion during general public comment. The board may occasionally ask questions to clarify public comment, or the board will correct inaccurate statements if warranted, but no member of the board will enter into a discussion or answer questions that are posed during public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? All right. We're going to move into approval of minutes. Do we have any side add-ons here, Christy, of minutes?
I distributed the work session minutes for the 21st, and I also sent out an email of those today because I was able to them completed.
Okay.
Otherwise, you know, will be emailed out. And the only other changes, I noted that on the June 11th meeting minutes, there were a lot of changes to them, and I can tell you those whenever you want me to.
Okay. Let's start with the June 7th work session minutes. Is there any comment on those? All right, can I have a motion to approve the June 7th work session minutes as presented?
Second.
We probably moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Passes.
You talked to the first motion list.
Yep, Nathan, yep, Stephanie seconded. Okay, June 11th is also in the packet. So June 11th was the regular June board meeting, a monthly meeting. Anything in there?
And those, there was a couple of corrections in those with who was motioning and seconding, but I don't have those in front of me anymore.
Yeah, can I come?
Oh, thank you.
Whatever you guys are.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, on page 4, line 128, it should be Jennifer Benjamin seconded the motion.
Okay.
On page 5, line 154, it should be Nathan Dean seconded the motion. Thanks for hearing that. Page 8, line 251, it should be Jennifer Benjamin the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay. Any further corrections?
Not that I know.
Okay, any corrections from the board? I get a motion to approve the June 11th regular board meetings with the corrections as stated by the district clerk.
Okay,
Yes, Sam.
I'm looking at line 7. It's below Roxton District before the. I'd like to see the statement. In and out of hospital structure. There's.
Is there any objection to that? Start from the official minutes.
That is what she said.
I just assumed it wasn't in the minutes. Like, oh, that's my own opinion.
Further changes or corrections, June 11th minutes. Is there a motion to approve the June 11th minutes to include the changes verbally shared by the district clerk and the change to the loan rent report line 75? Now, Tony and then a second. Is there a second?
Second.
Fran, thank you. Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Passes. In your addendum packet, there are work session minutes for June 21st. Any changes? Corrections to the June 21st work session minutes? All right, can I get a motion to approve the June 21st minutes as presented in the packet? So Nathan moved. There a second? Second. Tony seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Tonight we have a couple packages of claims and a few things to note. I'll share a little bit. From what I know, if all the claims related to the Visa card charges, I think the board has noted that there are late fees and interest, which is not typical, not how the district office intends to run things. And so it's my understanding that a couple things have happened here that the district office is now on top of. First is the refreshing of a motion that this board passed, maybe it was as much as 5 years ago, that does grant the district office the ability to pay certain claims ahead of the board meeting. And so we've passed a few motions over time, but one is for the Visa card. We've also done the same for CSCT and one other payment, an insurance or a retiree payment. We've made a similar motion for. The second thing that has happened here, to my understanding, and the office can add to this as needed. The statement from Visa and the bank that it's run through has always, as in recent years, has been on a tight timeline. It's been on a difficult thing to manage. District office personnel have worked closely through the bank, and the payment has been mailed to an office in Kalispell. Things have changed through those banks. They were unaware of that. The payment now goes to Illinois for processing. And so what was getting to Kalispell with 24 hours to spare before it was late, now did not this time get to Illinois. And so the district office is now aware of the location change, the shift in dates, the ability to pay. And so, number of things came together that resulted in that, but hopefully that answers some questions around why there are late fees.
We have the card with these cards with, but
That I don't know.
security, state.
I can answer the one that I haven't done myself. I couldn't tell you. There's been a base that we've had for a long time, and I've talked to him about into the purchase of this POs. Is different and she doesn't want to switch to that, so which would be the Bank of Montreal, which is a different system where you get cash back on stuff. But she wants to stick with this system that she's got in place right now. So we have switched, so.
Have we explored the option then, looking at some other providers for?
No, I haven't looked at that yet. It's something we can look at and see.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's really- for banking, change whatever and not notify. folks that have- Raise the red flag. What are we going to do?
I'm not familiar with this thing, this is who the districts had for years apparently, and this is who they've used, so I left it as it is, because that's who she feels comfortable with. But, BMO is the one that I'm familiar with, and it's what most school districts use, because they get cash back. And so it's something that would be a good, situation for us, it's what Masco recommends for most school districts. And it's not something that we've switched to or, done with, but, it is something that we can get cash back on. So, and like I said, it's on the Montreal, so it would take a big name for us to get in switch to, but it is out of Canada, so.
Like explore some other. That we want to take.
Yeah.
Just because we had something like Lewis and Clark. Yeah. Things change and so forth.
Especially with the electronic payment, where we don't have to worry about the checks.
Well, we can't do a little bit of kind of payment, just because of the fact that all the districts in the valley share one checking account.
Oh,
So we can't do that.
I see.
Very limited amount.
Sure. Which probably proves Dan's point more. Use
Yeah.
probably the same company.
Yeah. But, yeah,
So so all the school systems are using a foreign bank essentially for their Visa, that's their home.
that's the account that everybody uses is Bank of Montreal.
Well, not to say no mind, I'd like to see us find an American bank. Just a thought.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's possible, I don't want to end up on a wild mission either, if possible, I think it would be.
I will do some investigating and see what I can do in my free time.
Thank you.
Questions about claims?
I saw that we had a big freezer repair bill. Did we lose the contents of said freezer
I
or
did not.
awesome?
We, Mr. Hackey, mostly back and forth, checking on the freezer and the status of the freezer, for a while now, making sure that, we weren't going to lose the products that were in the freezer. So appreciate his effort there, and, we needed to get some repairs done to the freezing system. And that's what that claim is.
Thank you.
Further questions? And right now we're looking at the first set of claims, 41,449 through 41,507.
On 41496. Is there any bills associated with, I'm assuming this is a parking lot, bill, consulting fees?
CDS Consulting
Is that what that is?
for
This,
$2,055.
well, there's three items together, 1,027.
Yeah, BDS Consulting is, Bill Shealy.
What you're looking for. You would say. $5,000. You get it filled somewhere in here.
What's the number again?
And what I'm looking for, costs on the parking lot fees, if it was engineering or I was looking for that, trying to find it.
I think there's one for.
Yeah, there's a payment to WGM, which is engineering.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's around 3,000.
No, what's in it's 41,468, which is the dual tank CCM high school park. $394.
That's a construction rep that is, for a consultation and, bid process for parking.
Further questions? Is there a motion to approve the payment of claims 41449 through 41507 for a total of $128,000, 490.42?
So moved.
Stephanie, second. Nathan, second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Passes. And reviewing the second claims package starts on the next number, 41508. Through. It's everything here, right, Christie? That you handed us just now? To should be 41530
Yeah, for all the June plans I just put together.
that you just gave us, yeah, okay. All right, so I know folks are just seeing these for the first time, so take a look through these. Question on the E-rate, not so much the claim, but we had some other E-rate rebates that we talked about earlier in the year that we needed to fill qualified for. That all come to fruition. Great. Any questions on the claims presented this evening, the additional? Dan?
The very first one, 41,530. It seems somebody went to a workshop, and came here for a workshop.
That's the national speech and debate. That includes airfare, hotels for the participants, local transportation, meals are all included there.
That group was fundraising for that, or those students were fundraising for that, so then that's offset then out of their fundraising work later.
It's offset, but
No, sure,
there's a fundraising that will offset that, but it's not. We got. Gotta walk.
right.
So we will access our advanced opportunity because that would be passed on to parent expense for them to participate into that program. So we'll use some of those funds as well.
Further questions? Is there a motion to approve claims 41508 through 41530 for $378,067.67? Fran, Tony, all those in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Right, looking at our consent agenda tonight. Consent agenda includes employment recommendations. There are no resignations on tonight's consent agenda. Any trustee would like an individual removed from the consent agenda for individual consideration, please speak now. Right, and the consent of the trustees only pertains to those items that trustees are legally allowed to consent in terms of employment. Are there any objections to the employment proposed on tonight's consent agenda? Right, seeing none, the consent agenda passes as presented. So we're pleased to have, to welcome Gabe Brown as a new head football coach for the district. Pleased to have Sean Lenahan and Brad Armour supporting him in that role and bringing their knowledge from the Stevens football program back for the 2024 season. And welcome Corinda Lumen in the middle school and in a newly created position of high school, middle school activities coordinator, supporting the activities director, and transportation coordinator. We welcome Brody Astle.
You guys did a great job with that.
Right. Informational items tonight start with our superintendent's report. And so, Mr. Tennis, the floor is yours.
First and foremost, National History Day, so I know Cody is here to give that, and Heidi is here as well, so I'd like to turn the floor over to them to talk about their day.
I've heard it said before that once in a lifetime opportunities come around about twice a year. In my recent trip to Washington DC and the University of Maryland was a culmination of several of these opportunities. The first notable one was all the way back in 2020, when my social studies teacher introduced my class to National History Day. In that competition, as a senior, I teamed up with a few of my classmates, and we made an amazing website about the Native American girls basketball team in Fort Shaw. But sadly, our advancement in the competition was ruined by the COVID-19 pandemic. For 3.5 years, a love of National History Day rested in the back of my mind and heart. And then, in December of this last school year, Mr. Wells presented the most beautiful opportunities to bring National History Day back to Stevensville. I immediately pounced on this with great enthusiasm, pouring my effort into creating the best essay I possibly could about SEO. And thankfully, it was enough. When I heard my name announced to travel to the national competition representing Montana, I was filled with excitement. Yet another once-in-a-lifetime opportunity stood right in front of me. After immense fundraising and preparation, for which I am very thankful, the time finally came to travel. I wasn't quite sure what to expect because I'd never been to the national competition and I didn't know anybody. But I never expected it to be as amazing. I met so many incredible people, spanning from Superior, Montana, to Minnesota, New York, Texas, Australia, Jamaica, South Korea, and Indonesia. Amazing people. I learned that while textbook history holds a significant importance, there's also a lot to be said about individual history. Every single person I met had an amazing story, just waiting to be told. was just take the time to listen. I didn't travel all the way across the country to miss South America's rich history that is so. I got to visit Arlington Cemetery, saw the exchange of guards in the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. I stood in front of the original Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and Bill of Rights. And I went to so many other historical sites and museums that I'm kind of shocked my brain managed to absorb. Being in the presence of so much beautiful history has rekindled a passion in me that I wasn't aware was still there. I got so excited about all the things I had the chance to learn about. I ended up bringing home more books than I had any idea how to do. Not even sure how I managed to pack all suitcase. However, just a few months before all these events, I couldn't have cared less about history. I just didn't see the point. But after such an incredible experience, I was reminded of what learning is really all about. If every student was given and then chose to take a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity like the one I had, the education landscape would look very different. I've been blessed with a passion for learning that not everybody has. Thankful that I was given the opportunity to expand this passion. I will never forget the experience I had. Sadly, my thinking about Jesse Owens never reached a level that I'm extremely proud of. So I have every intention of writing an even better paper for next year's competition and earning something greater than the Montana affiliate. Thank you for your support, and thank you for this fire who have helped reunite inside of me.
Thank you. What an outstanding report. Thank you so much. A model for future students that travel out of state to come back and share what you've learned. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Mr. Wells should receive some kind of, for the time that he took to institute this program. To allow Cody to achieve the success that he's achieved. And I appreciate what Mr. Wells is working in social studies. Outstanding and exemplary.
Fran?
I just want to take a minute to thank Ms. Cowan because of a series of things that were going on, Cody's teachers were not, and advisors were not able to travel with them. And thank you, Ms. Cowan, because without her traveling with Cody, he may have had to forfeit this opportunity because his family was not, I mean, we weren't in a position physically and health-wise, we were not, I was not in a position to travel with him. So I want to thank Ms. Cowan for stepping up in a position, into a position that she didn't have to, but that she did take that opportunity to do that.
Thank you. I'll speak first and then turn over on the website piece on the ad hoc piece. So an informational item for the board as we work through ad hoc governance and communications. Dan and Stephanie and I worked through that. Dan and Stephanie have done an amazing amount of work in the month of June. They really got the ball rolling. One of the things that we've talked about, we've talked about as a board, we've scored ourselves, is internal communication and all the different things happening at the board level, all the different things happening in the district office. And so starting after tonight, when board members are in committee meetings, so these are the official formal committee meetings, not the representative position, but the official ones, there'll be a little notes template available in the district conference room. There'll be copies of that. I'll share it out over email. And we're asking that one board member in the 3-person committees, it doesn't matter, it can rotate, it can change around, take some notes, note when the meeting started, those official details, who was there, and then the topics discussed, and just simple bullet items. These are not detailed minutes. And then that same board member types up a paragraph, if you will, email, and sends it to Dave that summarizes what was talked about and what direction was given in that committee. So the public knows committees don't, make formal decisions because they're not a form of the board, but do provide directions on things. And so that can be any board member, tries to type that up shortly after the meeting, the day after, and sends that to Dave. And then that is then Dave's summary of that, because he's ultimately, acting on that and carrying that forward. And then from there, that next level of communication, then, Superintendent, Tennis then is working to communicate via a board newsletter, a board report. Not a specific timeline, but maybe a couple times a month, where those reports then will come into that. So it'll be some shared work on our part. Dave will review, Dave will reach out if you type it, if Tony types it up, says, you know, hey, I've got some questions on what you remember here. You go back and forth, figure that out. That will then keep all of us more informed. And, it'll keep a written record that will funnel through Dave, and then it'll funnel out to everybody. So we can operate in a little bit less in some of these silos of that committee work. So anything else, governance committee, want to add to that discussion?
I think if the board has an example of what this could look like. This was put together by Dave, he's all of it. Once it's sent to Dave, Dave can do it.
Sure, and that's pretty detailed. Yeah. Just more on that page. So look for that, that goes into effect now that we've shared it with everybody. So next committee meetings, that's in effect, and there'll be a stack of those templates there on the bench or on the shelf in the district office conference room. So, Superintendent Tennis, then moving on with that. Your
Please feel free to jump in and ask questions, but the community can't see this, but in blue on the superintendent's report, there is this is the result of the conversation in the ad hoc governance committee. And it really is a community relations action plan is what we're working on. As kind of a guide to problem solving, what we want our district to be in terms of our relationship with all of our stakeholders. I do want to point out the guiding questions that really are summarized as to what we want, and then how do we envision achieving those complex framework questions. So when you see where are we going, where are we now, how do we move the plan forward, what did we learn today, and who benefits and who does not? Those are reflective sorts of questions that are problem solving questions and get at the heart of this. But really in the result of this, we are collaborating with various stakeholders, which includes our school improvement team, trustees, and will involve administrators when they get back into work, teachers, business partners, parents, and all of those groups will help to formulate this. And really what we've tried to do is narrow this down to a couple different types of communication, what we call one-way communication and what we call two-way communication. One-way communication would be information sharing, just getting the word out and letting people be informed about what it is that the district is working on. And the two-way communication is it's for both sending and receiving. So listening to what's going on, opportunities that exist out there. And so that is really the framework of this program. And you can see that there are lots of different ideas on how we interact face to face, community groups that are possibilities for us to interact with, and advisory type groups. I already have a community advisory and I have a teacher advisory that I meet with monthly, but there are other groups that we and I could be meeting with a little bit more frequently. We've talked about volunteerism and how to instill that. So it is a working draft document. It is far from complete, but it is a nice framework a plan that is moving us from, I think our vision is, we want to be more proactive about our communication, about what goes on in the Stevensville School District. And this puts a strategy in place for that communication. And it's a pretty detailed strategy. One thing that I really want to focus on tonight, I think, is a critical opportunity for us, and it came up in our work session too, and that is our website and our presence on social media. The reality of it is our story is not told. The good work that our teachers and kids do and the things that happen here on a daily basis that I observe and that others observe, nobody sees that. And yet what happens is our lack of sharing that message and sharing that good news is it's filled with things that are not true oftentimes, sometimes partial understanding of issues. And so this proposal and really discussion today is to transition our district website to a website host called Apogee. I have been in conversations with that company for several months. And that relationship can result in us really filtering through our website, filtering through the things that are no longer necessary on the website, updating information. And I want that to be a source of reliable information for parents, for kids, for anybody else that's interested in our district, that they get the accurate information from our website. One of the key components to Apogee is the ability to easily tell our story. And they have a platform built into this product that is called ThrillShare. And there are a couple of different avenues that people can receive information from the school district. So a parent could download an app that is unique to the Stevensville School District. So on their phone, there's a Stevensville School District app, and they can, anytime that a high school, middle school, elementary school district office posts an update, they would receive a notification on that app. It is an opportunity for us to share good news that way. But in addition to that, and I would say that tool, that application would be really important for somebody that's trying to avoid the social media scene, but really just wants the school information. It is only school information going through that application. However, ThrillShare allows us the opportunity to, with a click of a button, click Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and whatever we need it to do. And when we post and we hit go, it goes to all of them. And so the plan for something like this would be that our building principals and their offices would be sharing the good news of students and the good news of our teachers on a more regular basis, so that people get to see and hear about, and the conversation turns from what's going on there to, did you see what happened? And I'm telling you that there are a lot of really good things that people don't know. And we need to start to tell that story. And I think that this tool, there is an upfront cost. It's going to cost some money to do the transition. It's about $6,500 as an annual fee, plus with 1,000 students in the district, it's $3.25 per student in the district, and then a $4,500 one-time startup cost. It is not a long-term contract. They don't believe in those. They do it year to year. They have a 99% retention rate with their clients. They believe in giving the client the opportunity to move this forward. There are many districts in Montana and nationally that use this tool. It even offers us the ability to, in an emergency situation, use that to inform the public about what may or may not be happening. So Question. I really think that this is a tool that can move this communication plan from a passive reactive position to a more active position and really get the good word out about what's going on with events, concerts, teacher projects, field trips, National History Day, all of those things that people aren't necessarily aware of. It was easy. And that, I think, could change the narrative for our school district.
Nathan,
I think it's a great idea. I think that our website, hearing from everybody on that side of the table, I think that it's something that really needs to be done. My only question would be, do parents need to, give how does that work as far as being involved, the kids being involved? Because I think it's great to get the kids involved, but how does that work if Billy's parents don't want to be involved, but Laura's do,
Right. So one, first of all, control it. There's no need to download it. You don't need to have that. Your choice on social media. It has the ability to sync with Infinite Campus. So privately, you can message the elementary school contacts, which would be parents, or you can message district-wide. So email, text, or phone, voicemail can happen on this Thrill Share site. And because it is syncing with Infinite Campus, it's really messaging through that student management software. So there is the ability.
There are local school districts that use it. We at the governance committee, in that committee to take a look at. And I would reiterate what's being said, right? I strongly recommend that we take a serious look at integrating this into our communication plan. It fits nicely as we talked about. It fits nicely with what we're trying to do, but it also fits nicely in the conversation that we just had here. Certain goals, objectives, and what we want to do. I see this as a plan mechanism to help us accomplish those objectives we just talked about here.
Stephanie?
Before I lose track of this thought, I wanted to mention that the communication and relationship plan, I'm paraphrasing, the blue plan that's in our packet, that's the part that we were talking about adding as a objective into goal 3 during a work session. Just because it wasn't in front of us at the time, so I just want to mention that. And then we've talked about, I also really support this website idea. I feel like it just encompasses so much of what we hear from the community as far as like what they need. Our current website is pretty sloggy. It's hard to update. It saved us when we needed to get into that, to fix our compliance issue several years ago. So grateful for that. But then looking forward, I think it just ties a lot of pieces together. It's so user friendly. And instead of having just a couple people in the district that can update information, where we talk about the bottleneck of information where it gets stuck because people don't have the time. There's just sentinel people on campus, building administrators, secretaries, that are able to put that information in. And so it's just a more free flowing exchange of things happening there. One of the other things we talked about in committee is how important it is to let people know we're having band concerts and when is the football game. That's a bad example because everybody knows when football games are, but getting that information out there. And can we have, I forget the light up signs, can we do something like that on Main Street? The cost effectiveness of doing this online versus having a light up sign and figuring out where to put it in maintenance. It's huge. And then if we are able to develop more of a relationship with the Bitterroot Star or start getting more things into the paper, it's a tool that can just really facilitate things moving forward. So it's a basket full of goodies.
Tony?
So I'm 100% for this, but I do have a thought. Is there any point at which it's too much? when too much information starts getting on there, I mean, is there a limit to the level, I guess, of information that gets posted to where it doesn't just become a throw up site where, you know, every teacher in the school is posting, you know, 15 things about their students on a single day, to where all of a sudden it's so massive that you start have to sort through to get to really the kind of information that you were talking about. So is there some, as long as there's some way to, some,
I don't know, I hear what you're saying, and I think, you know, to start with, I'm gonna say this technology stuff wrong, but, you know, to really limit the channels and the number of people that can post that stuff, maybe rather start small, as possible, rather than try to bring things in. What does cause problems for us at times is we have, Facebook, Instagram, other pages that were started for a Stevensville soccer program, basketball, whatever it may be, that are no longer active, but when they can still be online and people may still see them. This particular tool, you know, I see this as a high school principal and secretary having the ability to share something. I see the middle school principal and secretary having the ability, activities, those sorts of things. Elementary school as well, that this information gets out. So I'm not saying that every teacher has this, but it's really controlled by the school level office to get the message out about their schools and target their audiences. I do want to address something in here that I think is really important, because I know that this board spent a ton of time getting the website and the information ADA compliant. I have been assured from Apogee that what will go online will be ADA compliant, and they understand the idea of a PDF that is an agenda or board packet, and the fact that that isn't compliant. They are committed to working with us to, if we team ready to go, just the compliance issue with us, and they will work to get our packets, which may be possible to be ADA compliant, moving away from an image to something that can actually be adjusted so people have access to that. They are aware of our history, because I've explained that to them, and they want this to be successful for us, and they are willing to have a team ready to go. Honestly, with the blessing of the trustees, moving this forward, this can be implemented by the website up and running and ready.
Further board question? Yes, Fran.
So that being said, Dave, will the contract that we have with them specifically state that it will be ADA compatible? Whatever contract we have with them.
Yeah, the agreement will,
Have that wording in the
I would
contract.
have to do every detail. On the
Okay.
contract, I'll make sure.
Thank you.
Well, and I think I want to clarify here, based on what we talked about in governance and then what you just said. I think Dave can correct, but I don't think Dave's saying we can launch and go with the packet immediately. They will work with
No,
us.
I'm just saying that the contract says that things will be ADA.
Okay, yeah, because I don't think, I do, but I want to be clear in case anybody's watching, listening, that we'll be able to get the packet online, because I don't think they even have the solution for it right now.
They want to work on that.
They'll work. Yeah, yes, because it would benefit everyone.
All I was saying is that the website and.
Yeah, sure, the website.
Is an ADA.
Whatever.
compatible. We don't get back into the
Yes,
same
yeah.
track that we.
No, it's a government question. Yeah. Public questions on the superintendent's report. Yes, please. And state your name. Thank you.
So I understand, you're saying that the annual cost is $6,500, and then there's an additional $3.50 per student
cost.
every year. What's our current website cost?
It's about $3,500.
So we're going from $3,500 to almost $10,000 on top of the $4,500. That's a big jump.
Yeah.
So is there, I've dealt with a few of these style places and there's always room for negotiation. Cause they throw numbers out there and they'll come way down. So I would encourage that we negotiate and try and get those prices down because, I mean, that's a big jump. And why do we pay $6,500 and then $350 per student? Are the students all listed on there? Are they charging us per
So
student?
they base it by the size of the district and the implementation with the Infinite Campus that determines that number. So the number of, the ability of how many contacts there are to get the messaging out, that's a cost to them, and that's why that is built in.
Okay.
And I hear you, and they have offered some discounts already. But negotiation is always a good thing. You know, if you ask, worst I can tell you is no.
Yes, for the public comment.
Is there a ongoing support once you purchase this?
For the record, and so everyone knows, yeah, and we're in compliance with new state law as of July 1st with everything here, so yeah, if you can stand, state your name. Okay.
Is there ongoing support included in that package?
Yes, unlimited training and support for implementation, and as we progress through and learn and want new things, they have a team ready to go, and they're ready, they're waiting for us to say, go.
Further questions on the superintendent's report? Yes?
Christina Shukar, is there an option on there where you can do a, how do I say this, for the bully prevention, the school district needs to provide a, anonymous, either email, phone call, or like note somewhere within the school. Is that an option on this new?
That's a great question. That's one that I would have to ask. And if we can put that online, and then the decision about where is it going? You know, when somebody fills out a form, that's all great if they fill out a form, but who gets it?
Mhm.
You know, and then what happens with it? So we would have to work out the details. Great.
Further questions? So this has been in governance, and the governance committee gave support to this with the caveat that it needed to come before the full board for a healthy discussion and questions, which I think we've done that tonight. And so at this point, it's not an action item, but is there any objection or concern from the board members, especially those that aren't on governance, that would say this should be sent back to committee? This should be paused? Is there anything anybody want to voice right now, or are folks comfortable with the governance committee's recommendation to work on this? Okay. No action item, so we won't take a vote, but that gives us the information we need. Superintendent Tennis, any other questions you'd have for the board? Okay. If I could ask you in your report, would you leapfrog CSCT up to this, and then we'll kind of set ourselves up for the parking lot? Yeah, super. Change the order on that.
Yeah, the CSCT information is informational for you, and wants you to know CSCT, Comprehensive School Community Treatment Programs. Many schools have these. And really with the state of students and education in general, this is a huge resource for our students that are experiencing some type of social emotional disability and need for support in the classroom. And so we have CSCT programs and have had CSCT programs in Stevensville for years. And there is a letter with detailed information in your packet from the co-op and the business manager of the co-op that really kind of outline this scenario. What's happened over the course of several years is there has been some movement with CSCT in terms of how CSCT therapists are able to bill serving students. And there has been a daily maximum bill that our amount that somebody can bill. And in the past, it was broken down into 15-minute increments. And what's happened now is the rate of reimbursement, the billing of, the billing structure has created this gap. In the past, CSCT programs were almost entirely self-funded. So they would serve kids, the billing would come through, and they would be, they would be self-sustaining programs. Well, we are in a position, so our cooperative provides our CSCT teams to our schools. And they are in a position where they are accessing their reserves. And so to help with them accessing reserves and to help to bridge some of that gap, I just want to be informative that there is an expense to this, to the district, and there hasn't been before. The absence of such a program is it's possible other places do it. I wouldn't recommend it. It ends up with our teachers in situations, our parents in situations, our administrators in situations, our secretaries in situations, dealing with maybe a student that has escalated in behavior and they may not have the right skills to make the situation. And that is a huge asset to our I am a proponent of having a CSCP program. I'm just making you aware that there are some financial obligations for the district. And what invoice that Joe Reynolds has sent from the co-op is a invoice that is due in February, and it is what they've described as worst case scenario. It could be less than that. And there is some work at the legislative level that's happening to change the structure of billing again as a reimbursement rate. Hopefully, because I think that everybody sees the need for more mental health support, not less. And so this work that many people are working on inside and outside the school district could be a really important thing and change that. So I just wanted to make people aware. Questions related to
Steph,
Mr. Tennis, could you, I think in essence, I understand this, but what is structurally, what's the difference? Our contribution they're gonna ask us for, that's kind of helping their reserves versus what they're billing us each month? Is that they're billing us to the maximum that they can each month, and this is expenses that they have beyond that?
digging in. They so they're digging in, but they're asking us to contribute to so that they don't have to dig so deep.
Okay,
And so they're asking each of the districts that are members of the cooperative to essentially pay roughly the same amount, right about the less than $20,000. And that's a projection, and they are communicating that as kind of the worst case scenario. It could potentially be less.
the bill that I think you're asking about that we see in our claims each month is because the state changed things, and so things need paid in advance. And then Christie sees an equal payment come in later that we never see, because we don't see
we
revenue.
don't see the,
We don't see revenue, we only see claims. And so that's, yeah, they're very different. So are we, everything's coming out of wash?
Yeah.
On those, so
Yeah.
when we approve $9,000, and so it's not that they're billing us the maximum out, it's billing us, they fluctuate each month because they're billing on those, on the students served in those billable units.
right. And I think I said that wrong, but, yeah, no, I think that's helpful.
They are also changing some of the structural components on how they serve some students as well. Sometimes they're doing some home services, which then in those cases, then they are able to bill differently. And so the billing rates for that service is a little higher, so that will help them with the bottom line. the more they transition to that. But, I just wanted to make folks aware that this is out there.
Dan?
What impact, if any, has the Medicaid decisions that have come out of this program?
But that's just it. The Medicaid billing is what really has been a substantial part of them making it self-sufficient, is billing to Medicaid for these services. And the Medicaid eligibility has been a problem, and the Medicaid reimbursement is a problem. So the combination of those, oftentimes there are students that, and they serve them, when they need it, they serve them, whether they're Medicaid or not. But in those situations, it's, that's where it's a lion's share of the billing would come is through that. And when there hasn't been an application or an automatic qualification for Medicaid, then that they send a bill that oftentimes is not able to be paid.
Just a comment, and I've expressed this before as a board member, but we have closed a gap before. All the districts have closed the gap before for the co-op. And co-op provides an absolutely critical service. The other avenue that could be out there, and I think it deserves some conversation at some point down the road, would be how do we provide this essential service ourselves and get a Medicaid billing number and do that like what the districts do. And so it doesn't have to be outsourced. Bring these folks in on staff, these professionals, and do it through that way. So not the night, not the time and place to make that decision, figure that out now, but I do worry that first or the only stopgap payment. There could be more. And so at what point do we say, we know how important these services are, we need to hire the professionals, and we need to have our own billing system, and there's nothing stopping us from billing Medicaid. The same thing they're doing. And then they're paying their administrative fees out of that. On top of it, we could be claiming that money as well. So Nathan, that was exactly you heard what.
Yeah. No, I didn't know if that was possible.
It is, and the bigger schools do that. They have them in-house.
How many students are we talking about?
Usually fluctuates, but it's anywhere from 10 to 20 students in a case load, that's served by a team. Sometimes it's higher, and that will depend upon the needs of the students and how severe they may or may not be. And so, yeah, I would say on average, you're looking at probably 20-ish
In our school, 20 kids,
in each.
Per team. I think we have 3 teams.
Yes.
So
40 kids. Up to
63 teams.
Oh, 3 kids.
Yes, and a team is a therapist and a BC, right? A behavioral consultant.
I don't know if this question is online, so is this mostly a special ed expense? Or is it not just in any sort of altercation merits this possibly case by case? How do you decide?
How do you decide?
Yeah, how do you decide to put the kid in under a team? How do you decide what's the?
Usually what happens is we have some teachers defer to them too, but usually what happens is there's a series of disruptions that might happen in a classroom, and then that becomes there's a need for support, and then administration and CSCT, they start to formulate, is this somebody we want to do an intake with? They really triage that, trying to figure out, is this somebody that we can serve and help be successful in the class?
Is it possible to get the board a list of what the options are in these situations? What is the least sort of action that we can take? We can, turn this over to a team and let them work with this student, or what's the most extreme thing that we get to do as a board? What can we do to get things calmed down in the school to where chaos is not the name of the game every single day. To where that there's not kids here that just don't feel safe every day because of this toxic, chaotic environment that some of these other kids put up. How do we get an end to that? Does this do that? Because I hear lots about it in the community every day. Not every day.
I know you hear a lot about that. Deny that there are needs, but I want to go back to this. I believe in the people that believe in the good things that happen here. There's way more good than that. And sometimes kids that struggle. And they just, and I've seen these systems in place have a profound impact on student success. And I've seen them not have success, but it doesn't change people's effort to try to do that. I think what your role is like what we talked about with objectives. We want to have good MTSS systems where we have abilities to address behavior in the school that is impactful and results in positive change. And that's the direction that you are giving me to provide administrators. We need these systems in place, and we need to have high expectations for students, but we also need to help somebody else when they're down. You have to do both. And then at the very extreme end of that is, okay, we've exhausted our resources and now we're talking about expulsion. I mean, that's the end, and that's where you get to weigh in. And that is a huge deal. At that particular juncture, you are deciding what is a right for student. It is a property. You're going to take that away. There's going to be good rationale for taking that away. In the in-between is the business of educators and the business of administrators to work through all of it. I know that that's a roundabout way, but I'm telling you, people work on something. Dave.
I'll share, because I think I understand where your questions come from. I think it has plenty of merit. It's just the CSCT that's not the end all be all. There are disruptive kids that never interact with CSCT teams. And so it's not that they're hand in hand and part and parcel. So I think hopefully
It's one piece to it.
it's one piece, but right, not every disruptive kid is on a CSCT caseload.
I don't know.
But it's a good question. And I understand what you're saying there. Fran was going to speak next.
That's pretty much what I was saying.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, when we're talking about CSCT, obviously everything that happens in the classroom, all students are affected, right? But when the CSCT teams and the students that we're dealing with that are associated with that are not always, the problem is not always involving another student. Sometimes it's involving themselves. A lot of times it's an inner thing that is happening or something that's happening at home that a teacher recognizes and they need some extra help on a CSCT level. So just because they're on a CSCT team or there's a CSC team working with that student doesn't necessarily mean that they have bullied somebody or they've done something disruptive in the classroom on a major scale.
Dan?
To climb on my political soapbox again. Once again, this is an example of politicians in Helen making decisions that affect schools, students, and their resources without any regard or any concern. It getting to be a constant message out of Helen. It's time for that to change, and I honestly believe until school districts, school board associations start to unite and do what they need to do, what's over in Helen is going to continue to punish school districts for their own political gain.
Public questions for the superintendent around CSCT. Yes.
Mr. Cooper, with this program, what is like the turnaround time? So if like a kid gets suggested to CSCT, like how fast are they getting help? Is it days? Is it hours? Is it like, what's the turnaround time?
It's not hours and it's not days. Particularly I mean, the parents are involved, so there's meetings that are set up and a lot of times it's dependent upon access, caseload, all of that. So there can be some delays in services. Sometimes it's fast, but it's definitely not hours and it's definitely not days.
Well, it sounds like they get to pick and choose the stuff that they look at, which also is a concern for students, because, I mean,
Who gets to pick and choose?
well, it sounds like CSCT gets to pick and choose which ones they determine are worthy of their services. That's what I took from this conversation we just had. Is that the case? Like, I mean, are kids able to get this if they need it? If they want it? If a kid wants to go see the therapist, is he able to go see it?
I think there's a fine line. We employ school counselors that have this background too.
Okay.
And so that's
That's where
kind of a first level. There's also a very clear level on parents' willingness and rights. And so, yes, a student may be recommended, but parents come in and have that meeting and say, we disagree wholeheartedly and we're not going to do that, then that can result in things going a different direction.
That's
because
fair.
That's their right.
Right. The other question I had really quick was, is it the same people pretty consistently at that co-op? Or is the turnover rate pretty high?
It can be pretty.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing, when you have kids seeing people, especially like they want consistency, they don't want a new face every time. So how does that help our kids?
Well, and I think to frequency, I would say, and maybe some of the teaching staff would say, I think when we say the turnover's high, it's on a school year turnover basis, not on every month somebody new. Would you say once you have a CSCT team, you probably have them for the year?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, but to your point, somebody matriculates from second to third grade, they come back in third grade, like to see the same person, they might not be here.
Mhm.
They might not. It is work that sometimes mental health professionals find something else to do. It's that kind of work that we do. Nathan.
I mean, I think to kind of wrap up what everyone's saying, I think our school, in-school counselors have done great. I have a daughter that's dealt with, different issues, and we've talked with her and we've been like, would you like to talk to Mr. Stark? Stark was in the primary. And it's the next day. I think that our school counselors do a phenomenal job. My kids love them. Our staff does a phenomenal job. We have to remember that as we're sitting here and we're talking about turnover and so on and so forth, we're recommending this because we aren't the professionals. Vicky's not that professional. So we are looking at other options. As Cody stated in his statement, what I took away from him in his speech was, I was given this opportunity. I chose to take it. That's huge. That's all we can do. You can lead a horse to water. And so here we sit. But I think that our school has done a phenomenal job in giving the resources to the community. Parents don't want to do it, man. But the school has done a phenomenal job in being receptive to, for the last, Greg, my targets, I know Vicky would know better, but every year, it's been great. I think that we do a great job, and all we're looking for is the opportunities. So it's up to our community to take advantage of them. So that's all.
Right. Thank you. I think we'll see the invoice again as February gets closer, see if it's adjusted. So it'll not be the last time we talk about this, but we are on track for uninterrupted service to start the upcoming school year. We'll have 3 teams, 1 in each building, so that'll all look good that way. There's somebody's name. We hope.
We have full teams.
That's a co-op duty to supply those. No. Hope so. It's our contract. Yeah, hope so. In your packet then, and also under the superintendent's report, are two items around the parking lot. And, we'll talk about that some in here. And then I would like to ask at some point here if there would be a board member that would, suggest that, or make a motion that we would recess, and we are going to walk out and take a look at what's going on. But before we do that, we'll take advantage of the cooler weather in here and get some background for why we're having this discussion, why we've got an architectural map in front of us, members of the facilities committee, and then we, at a recent work session, we tasked trustee Mullen to work with the city of Stevensville, and he got a lot of answers and information. And then the superintendent has worked with WGM and our owner's rep, and has some really recent information that has,
So, the discussion about the high school parking lot was born several months back, and really back in the discussion of the school bond. What plan is in front of the trustees tonight with the diagram was originally part of the bond process that wasn't able to be finished at the time due to, the status of the bond and the money for finishing the construction. So the facilities committee did begin the conversation about when can we get this work done, and started to entertain the idea, which then resulted in me reaching out to WGM, who was the engineer in the build project, and Hulting as the owner's rep, because they were familiar with us. And so we started a conversation with those two entities about doing some work in the high school parking lot, making this look like it's what's intended to look during the bond phase. Acknowledging that, one of the reasons why we're here is our communication, internally from facilities to board and all of that. I think when we started to move down this direction, it was met with, didn't necessarily know we were moving that direction. So there are other options that I want the trustees to consider, and then make a decision about which direction we go on this part. I don't think anybody questioned that we need to make some improvements. And initially, the improvements that we were really trying to address were the bottleneck that happens on getting in and out of 3rd Street. When buses are going through and cars are pulling in, there's not a lot of space. And when our buses are caught in traffic, they can't get around to our bus loop. It creates some safety issues with our bus drivers and the kids that need the bus. It creates some safety issues. And so the intent was, can we widen and make this passage more safer than what it was before, and have an ease of access and not necessarily have a bottleneck. And in addition to that, add a little bit more parking for students. And so that was the purpose, and that was so one thing is to move forward with paving, having the access, tying into 3rd Street. The diagram you see is in front of you. The other option is to entertain the idea of removing the current stop sign and sidewalk, making that entrance, and then just leaving the parking lot as a dirt parking lot and changing the tie down curbing for students to park. Those, and hopefully I'm paraphrasing this correctly, and I'm sure there's questions, but those are the two options. Obviously, the benefits of the option without paving is less expensive. The bids for the construction works were due yesterday at 4 o'clock. The low bid in that process was a local contractor, and the basic bid, or the base bid, was $80,000. There are some alternatives that do some additions to that. But roughly is what the engineers and, construction rep had projected to be about $100,000 project for construction. So that is the options that are in front of you. Entertain some questions and then maybe we take a look.
I want to point out, I don't think that the options are stark either. There, if you look at the map, part of the town option is to change the stop sign, remove the bulb out. I think there's ways things can be blended too. It's not a straight up and down, take the engineer's map or not, because the bulb out's there, the curve is there. I think there's ways things can be done, you know, say, well, we like certain parts of this, but we don't like, you know, we want to work with the city to reconfigure. The engineer's proposal doesn't have any of that in it, where the city and I think some of the things Dan has learned, the city is open to doing that. They just need a formal consider it. So Dan?
So when I got involved in this, my concern was the entrance and exit on the third street. So and Bob said, why don't you just remove the stop sign? We'll take this to the town council. But and
Yeah.
we'll let you remove the stop sign, take out the stop, and that will widen the path or where you enter Third Street or where traffic Third Street enters the school district. So what's the cost? Answer was that probably isn't. So the other part of the conversation that came up above and beyond this is that if you look at Third Street, when you turn from Park Third Street and you're heading east, it's this wide. But as you move east, there's a narrowing of the width of the street as a result of angle parking has been there as long as I can go back 40 years. So I asked Bob, what can we do to widen the street? And we both agreed that the school district can approach the board, can approach the council and say, can we remove the angle parking? Yes, you can make that request. Could we ask that the angle parking be changed to parallel parking as it is on all the streets that are around the school? And Bob's comment was, yeah, certainly ask that. That's up to the town council as to whether they approve it. So the intent with Bob and the town getting involved was to widen as much as possible East Third Street. And then to solve the entrance and exit problems from Third and the parking lot, so that does not become the bottleneck that it currently is. And again, when I asked Bob, what's this gonna cost? Bob's answer was, I don't cost anything. So there's also some issue here, and this is kind of superfluous, but somebody's claiming that there's some kind of, that says we have to do some kind of landscaping. We can't find anything on campus that states to that. We can't seem to find anything in the rules of this town. But if there is such a thing, Bob said to me, we can take that to the board, take that to the council, and they'll probably just. So the option of the safety on Third in the entrance and the exit parking lot is almost a no cost issue as far as we're concerned, as far as the council. Can we just up and do it? No, we can't. We need to take a proposal to the city council. We need to ask the permission to do these sorts of things. Bob has indicated to me that there probably will be support still. What happens inside the curve is the school district's business. What happens from curb to the street is where the city council can.
So I'd like to propose and ask for a motion to recess. I'd like to, if that's granted or passes, let the public know that no decisions would be made. It would simply be for laying eyes on this so we can all understand what we're looking at. And of course, the public is welcome to join. This would be a little field trip here. Do you ask your question now?
Before we go, I think it's a good time. Dave, you see more of this than all of us. What, in a perfect world, if you had, like, what exact problems, and I feel stupid asking being on the facilities committee, but what what problems are you trying to solve here before we walk out there and see, this? Is it strictly Third Street access flow? Is that it? Is that what we're trying to solve?
The problems that were initially presented to in the facility were really the access onto the entrance and egress, I guess, on the Third Street and additional parking.
Right.
Right now, different. Oftentimes students will just run over the curb and just park. And that's, yeah.
Then I think we can speak to both of those when we walk out there, being as what we've talked about in the facilities. So that's why I wanted to bring it up, and I would sure like to make a motion to do.
And Tony had one comment for
So,
recess.
so two things. One, how many parking spaces did this add for the 80,000? Two, it's very difficult on this scale down plan. It appears that you're still gonna have a hard time getting buses. There's still too tight a radius on the incoming buses trying to turn in, especially if they're coming, from the opposite direction. It's basically, they can only come one direction at all with this time.
Please and thank you.
Would like to look at that.
And-
Somebody has one.
Well, and that's why I'd like us to not think of it as an A and a B. I'd really like us to not think of it as a stark A and B, because I agree. I don't love what they drew up because they never got the city. And so if we can do things with the city, do we have other things on the table? Because I agree with that turning radius question. It doesn't help us. It's a weird question marky curly thing there.
And I think, Tony, not to answer for Dave, but we were adding, like 13 or 15 spots, 15 spots.
15 to 18, but if we do annual,
Right. Which I think it's like we had talked about. The difficulty that we have is the access, and we can look at it to the north of the current parking lot, the northeast. CHS has an access there that they use for their semis coming in and out. So we can only go that far. And I think that radius there on the outside, on the east side, is what it is. Now, with that being said, the sidewalk to the south of the radius coming out of the parking lot, there's a lot of options.
But we got
Yeah, exactly. Frank.
I agree that maybe the diagonal parking turning to a parallel might be an option. I would like to see us be good neighbors and take into account that when we're doing that, BVEC, Bitterroot Co-op, as well as Head Start, their parents use those parkings when they're picking up their kids and dropping them off sometimes. And so how is that going to affect them? Because I would imagine that it's going to be less parking spots if you change it from diagonal to parallel parking. And so I would like to see us as a good neighbor have a visit with those two organizations about how it affects them as well when we're changing that parking, if we choose to do that with the city.
And I think that with the map that we had seen before, but like Ben had mentioned, we can blend all three of these together, where it makes this loop coming out of there nice and easy, and it still allows for more parking than we've ever had. You know, so I think that we can make all worlds.
There a motion to recess for the purpose of laying eyes on this? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of recessing to go lay eyes on this parking project, say aye. All opposed, same sign. We stand in recess, until we all return back here. All meeting back in order. All our board meeting, out of recess and back into session. We have come back from the on-site visit of the parking lot, egress and access onto Third Street. And we have, settled on direction that the facilities committee will work with the superintendent as soon as, really starting as soon as tomorrow and Thursday, and into their meeting, their regularly scheduled meeting, which is Tuesday of next week, on some direction for how to make this project happen based on some of the feedback and ideas that were shared during the on-site walkthrough.
I know you mentioned Thursday, I am going to be out of town.
Okay, I think the facilities committee is gonna talk amongst themselves. Okay, thank you for clarifying that, so that's a good clarification. And then the standing meeting, Tony won't be present for, but Nate be at the facilities meeting on next Tuesday, week from today.
Yeah.
Okay, and that date still works for you? I know that evening doesn't, but the daytime does.
So the day's fine.
Okay, okay. Yes, Dan.
We need to do anything with those bids, notify anybody.
I'll make a phone call tomorrow to give everybody a status update of what it is and, yeah.
So Glenn, I'll be calling.
Between me and Glenn.
That's good.
So, right. I feel like I need to do that.
And with that will be some recommendations from the facilities committee for what, if anything, needs to be requested of the town of Stevensville, which will then work with trustee Mullen to continue that relationship and that request. And Dan, does that work for you?
Yeah, I'll be back in town, so I'm sure he'll be stopping by asking me what we're doing.
Okay. All good on that? All right. Also under the superintendent's report, we had the discussion and talked through a number of things around District Goal 5. And so barring anything else anybody'd like to add around that, I would propose that we move on to our action items. Okay, first of which would be the renewal of liability insurance that we currently have through MSPLIP. And there is an insurance proposal in the packet. And of course, superintendent has lots of information about this.
Yeah, so liability insurance, it continues to be a problem for something new. Absolutely, it is, costs are escalating. When I asked the question about, why, there's just so much, litigation anymore. And one of the big things is cyber insurance. That is new to the world, and the phishing and email fraud and all of those sorts of things. Folks are getting fairly sophisticated with those sorts of attempts to defraud school districts and people that they think have money, and they do a pretty good job. So those are some factors that are impacting liability. I will say this, our service with MSLIP has been great. Any questions that I've had, any that needed to have contact or service, they've been outstanding and been responsive to everything that we've needed them to be. So I do appreciate their professionalism and service to us. I do, out of Fidelity believe that, I recommend renewing with them, but I also think that in the future, we get ahead of this and entertain some bids from some other companies. And see what a competitive bid would look like.
Are they a trust?
Oh, boy, I don't know that.
Any public questions or comments on the topic of, school liability insurance? Or any interest in the board in acting upon this tonight?
I'd be happy to make a motion. Motion to renew the district's liability insurance contract with the Montana School Insurance Property and Liability Plan for the 2024-2025 school year.
There's a second.
Second.
And second, it's probably moved and seconded that we renew our liability insurance policy through Montana Schools Property Liability Insurance Plan. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We have another renewal in front of us related to something we've definitely talked about earlier, and that is the co-op. We were out there close to their building. We own the land that building sits on. There's a lease agreement in your packet. This is a year-to-year lease, Dave?
This is a 5-year lease.
So it's a 5-year lease. And it is, we have discussed this in facilities committee before. It is no doubt an attractive lease, knowing Bitter Valley real estate levels, but because of the nature of the co-op, any costs put to them, they pass on to their member schools. So the terms of the lease, for the public to know are, $100 a month for that space. Questions, anything to add? 5-year lease. Okay. Public comment or questions on that lease agreement with co-op? Right. Their interest in the board and taking action on this.
Propose a motion to renew the lease with co-op for 5 years.
It's been moved to renew presented for a 5-year term. Is there a second?
Second.
Tony seconded. Further questions or debate? All those in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We have research in front of us, on a couple of sheets of paper here, or on this paper, and then one in the pack as well, of a proposal to adjust school meal prices. The school food services director has done some research and provided her input for what she sees working here at Stevensville, what happens in other schools in the valley. And superintendent and the district office have done research to that as well. I've looked into the additional revenue that would generate, what that would go to. And then we've talked previously about the really massive deficit that we carry in the school lunch program due to unpaid balances. And so we've kind of got a couple things working here, and we've got a well thought out proposal related to these prices. So, and then
My only comment is I know that this is a thoughtful conversation, because this is a tough one. This is a part of the family. So with all due respect to our families, this is not something that you just throw out there and say, no big deal. This weighs on you a little bit, and our prices have been relatively low in comparison to surrounding districts. But at the same time, our costs for food continue to escalate. And keeping up with the cost of food, this is something for you to consider. I know Debbie has included what would be with those current prices, the proposed prices, an average estimate of about $35,000 increased revenue to pay for. So that is an issue.
So the public knows we're operating at about $25,000 deficit. Correct, Dave?
Yeah.
Per
Right, and that's a good point. Straight deficit as well. That's not unpaid balance. That's the run to feed the run.
So there is a difference. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, unpaid balance.
So the deficit on the side of where we collect the school lunch money, which is about 25,000 right now, and we're still trying to figure out how we're going to collect that. That's the parent, the money that the parent. Then on the other side, which is the school lunch money, where we pay out the money for the food versus what we collect. We anticipate that we have to pay a certain amount. Again, we haven't got all the final numbers on that. We do always have to take a certain amount from our general fund or interlocal, wherever we need to offset that. So usually it's the general fund, and that right now is probably about 50,000 total. And that's in our food service fund. So there's a difference between those two funds. So that's, I just want to make sure that that's, because it gets a little bit confusing between those two.
Thank you.
So it is the board's responsibility to set these prices annually. Ever since I've been on the board, I think we've just kind of renewed what we've had. Once we do that, then it's the superintendent's duty, through an annual public newsletter to post those prices at the beginning of the school year. So that's kind of why we're at where we're at and why this conversation happened. So, Nate.
I just wanted to, for those of you that haven't been a part of the conversation before, you know, Dave's work, that I've never been a part of any school district going to or being a part of this, but besides Stevensville, but we're not unique in this situation. You know, Dave has worked in other school districts and it's common. So it's not that our administrators or if business offices do anything wrong. This is kind of common. So.
I guess I would just add, I think I had a little bit of shock when I saw the percentage of the increase going up, but as it's been alluded to, because it's been so long, we are still in a very, I don't want to use the word competitive because that's not what we're looking at, but a pretty equal standing, if not a little bit lower than our neighbors, what they're offering, what we're going to offer food for versus what other people are offering food for. So it's a big jump, but we haven't in so long that we just kind of need to get there at this point. And we're still not charging as much as other districts.
Fran?
This is a hard topic for me. I didn't message Dave about it because I mean, I'm a wife and a mother. I'm cooking and the food has increased. What I also know, because of volunteer stuff that I do and involved in, is that we have some families that this is just hard. It's just a hard situation. So I just want to point out some things that I had pointed out today, and I will add so one of the things that I noticed is basically all of them increased by 75 cents, except for the breakfast 6 to 12K. And I talked to Dave about it, and the only reason that it's $1 versus 75 is he's aligning it with other districts. But I want to throw some figures out to you guys because I think we do need to increase it. I'm concerned about the 75-cent increase right off the bat with some of our parents. When we're talking about a 75-cent increase per meal, if a kid eats for 180 days of school, that's a $135 increase to a family for one kid for one meal, or $15 a month. Then you add 2 meals to that, and that increases to $270 a year, or $30 a month. Then you're gonna complicate it even more. You're gonna throw a second kid in there. Right? So if a family has 2 kids and you increase it by 75 cents per meal, and they're having 2 meals a day at school, you're looking at an increase per year of $540 a year to that family, or $60 a month. So going back to what I said, we need to increase. I'm proposing that, or suggesting that we look at possibly doing that in smaller increments. If we do 50 cents for each increase, then these are the differences. That's for one child, for one meal, that's $90 a year, or $10 a month. For one meal, for 2 meals, obviously $20. But for a family of 2, that goes from $540 to $360. And so it goes from $60 a month to only $40. And I say only, it's only $20, and it's a huge difference for our school district, but it's also a huge difference for our families. So I just want us to think about those numbers. And I want us to think about what's on the back of our plan. What is best for our students? And making sure that we do what we need to do fiscally for our school, but also making sure that we don't cut some families off at their knees financially when we're making an increase.
So
Dan?
is this gonna exacerbate or motivate parents that are in certain situations to now start to return or reintroduce lunch forms?
I hope that the case, because I want them to apply for that and qualify for that if they need it, you know, and so but it may not.
You know, I know we can't predict behavior, but it may have an unintended consequence where parents have become do it for influence. Hey, there's a way out of this. We can moderate it by doing this, but we have to. And again, who knows? You know, we have talked about reaching the threshold, and I know, you know what I'm gonna say, reaching the threshold, it's like, it's free. How is it that cost? How much?
Two different things. CEP is what you're talking about. And if that is the case, you're reimbursed at a lower rate than what you're reimbursed when you're not in that category. So you actually are, the food to the district is not free. And then there's a reimbursement from the government lower than normal. So you're still paying for food, the district. And then reimburse that is at a lower rate. The benefit is that students are only, but for the district, it's actually an increase in cost because you're not recouping the reimbursement level that you were when you weren't on the CEP.
Right, so we qualify to do all free and reduced right now, but the problem is we did the calculator, which is for CEP, and you need to get up to 62.5%, and we're at around 35%, and that is students that direct qualify, which means that they are Medicaid or they qualify for SNAP. They have a certain qualification. They don't even have to fill out an application. And so when they do that, then, or when they qualify via that, we can just see that right on the computer. And if that is the same, then we would, just like Dave said, 62.5% of our student population qualified via that process, then we would be getting reimbursed with a higher rate, but we're not kids directly qualifying. So we don't get that higher rate, we get the lower rate. When we ran the numbers and did that, we would actually be having to take more money out of our general fund than we're already taking, that 50,000 that I'm guesstimating. We'd be taking even more money than we're taking now. And then that would be more of a hardship for the taxpayer. I think the taxpayer.
Are there any grants will be address these issues?
I don't know of any, so then we're gonna have to take it from some other fund that we have, some other area that we're trying to compensate. So then the other option to try to get more free lunches is people filling out the applications that qualify. That's the other option. Try to get as many people as we can to fill out those applications. And so right now, that's the other option, is trying to get as many people as we can to fill out the application, and hopefully enough to qualify via the application that it gets up to a certain threshold. Right now, we don't qualify. That's what Victor qualifies. That's what some other school districts that I've actually worked at DeSmet, they qualify for their entire population. That means even though my family doesn't qualify for anything per se, I'm above income levels, my child could still get a free lunch just like they did during COVID, and nobody pays for it per se. But this district qualifies for it. We're running the numbers. We're trying to be fiscally responsible so the district doesn't get themselves in some type of situation where we're having to come up with money to cover it. So we're not at that point yet.
Don't,
So,
so I don't know if it's right to raise the price or not, but I do know that Cisco is expecting 30% rise in cost of food over the next 12 months. And it's just the ugly facts of where we live today and where we are. These things are going to continue. So the numbers you have probably won't even be accurate when the day shows up. And the longer you put off doing some of these things, the greater the pain. These are things that maybe should have started, 10 and 15 cents. I don't know. I know the food costs are going to continue to go up, not down. And to your right, there's a way to pay for it. That's great. But if not, we can't continue to rob every little fund we have. I don't see any of them gaining ground. They're all losing. So
Public questions or comments? Yep, state your name, thank
I
you.
may have misheard what was said about projected deficit. My understanding is that there's a $25,000 deficit.
that's the deficit that the parents owe on past due lunch account.
And that's been accumulated over 4 or 5 years.
Correct. It's been
So this has not been taken care of in a timely manner year after year. It's been put off to where you're dealing with a monster check now. That's a failure on the board. We're not dealing with that in years past. But notwithstanding, now fix it. So either you can fix that, by either getting people to sign up for it, or to unpay it, which is fine, either way. But what I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's another $25,000 deficit we're talking about that's in the future is not going to be covered this year.
No, it's in the fund, which is called our food fund, it's Fund 112, the different fund numbers. And so when we get towards the end of the school year, we look and see where our salaries come out of that fund, and so do our food expenditures. And so when we get to the end of the year, any expenditures that are not covered, so we have we guesstimate what our budget is going to be, and whatever is not covered by the revenues that are coming in from the claims that we submit all year long, for those that we submit, all the claims for all the food, the money that comes in from that, and we look at it and we go, okay, we anticipate a certain amount of that's not going to be covered, and we have to cover that out of our general, which is what is happening right now. So we're waiting till all the claims come in, which happens in June, and then we look at it. Right now, I'm anticipating that's going to be about 50,000 that we have to take out of our general fund to cover. And that's what I'm not saying we're in the hole. I'm just saying that we have to come up with that. That is a normal process that happens in the school district typically, because you can't run your food service. Typically, your food service department is not fully what am I trying to say? Self-sustaining, right? Exactly. And so that $35,000 that we hopefully collect from lunches would go into that fund also. That's what we're saying, is that money that is collected, we would do that. Obviously, the problem with the 25,000, that would have been collected and put in there as well. Resolved.
So you're realistically expecting another $6,000 deficit unless there's an increase in food and meal prices.
Well, this is one of the problems, because obviously we've been charging a lower rate for one mechanism that we were looking at and evaluating.
Basically talking about cost of goods sold.
I'm sorry.
What we're talking about is cost of goods sold. We're taking a loss on cost of goods sold.
Yeah.
So we're looking to recoup some of that.
So the price right now. Or something like that.
Right.
25.
Andrew?
Andrew Shukar. With the food, totally lost my train of thought. Dang. Oh. What are we doing to hold parents accountable for paying their stuff? Because right now, it's set that if they don't pay, they still keep getting lunches. And so like, that's great and all. Kids get to eat, but it's like everyone's getting a free lunch anyway. It doesn't matter. So are we gonna raise the costs and everyone's just gonna get a free lunch anyways because we're not holding anybody accountable, or
There
We're
is a
gonna do
policy that
something.
addresses that. You can. That's it.
After 10 lunch.
After you have failed to pay for 10 lunches. So the junior doesn't pay for 10 lunches, junior doesn't get another lunch.
really, because that's not implemented.
Well, I can't speak to that.
No, I'm telling you because we've been there, we've done that.
Board policy.
My understanding is it would be difficult to turn a child away for that. So I think that the people that are on the front line are not doing that because of the problem that would occur if they turn them away. Because when they're gonna go back to the classroom and they're going to be hungry, the teacher is going to then have a crying child in the classroom. And you're gonna be on the front page of the Bitterroot stuff because you're not feeding the child.
The other part, Steve, says that parents will have those accounts turned over to collections. So there are policies that are in place that do, but they're being enforced. I can't answer that. But I can tell you this. Long way situation that we find ourselves in, 30 and 40 years ago. Same situation. Numbers may not have been as big, but same situation. It's, this couldn't pay, couldn't do whatever. Didn't have resources. So we have run a deficit in terms of charges in our school lunch program. How they've been addressed. Person that's in charge of that program has varied from person to person.
Christine?
Christine Shukar. So when I went to school, which was a very long time ago, this was always an issue, right? So you didn't have the 10 that you could pay for, then it wasn't, you don't get food and you're crying and you're hungry all day. It was, you get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which gives them food. It might not be what they want, but they're eating. And then also you make the parents responsible. Also, there's been times where I didn't even know that my kid bought lunch without asking, and then I had a bill and it was shocking, but I paid it right away the second that we found out that we had a bill. So, I think that if we continue to raise this price, I'm no mathematician, but if parents aren't, if parents aren't paying now, raise what food is, parents are still not going to pay. That's just how it is. So you have to make them a little bit responsible. You do, or we're just going to keep going.
I would hesitate to punish the student for a situation that is beyond their control in some cases. I get it. I get the accountability. I get all of that. Totally understand. But in the eyes of a 5-year-old kid that is hungry, and you say, stop, sugar. can't be due today. It's not a situation that any of our teachers or our employees want to be in, and honestly, that's not why any of us got into this business, not at all. Like, that makes me, that gets me emotional, like that kills me. That is not what educators are about.
Fran?
And I'll try not to get emotional, because I went to a school district, or my kid went to a school district, like, had the policy that Dan's talking about that was enforced. And I would tell you that my kids had friends whose parents chose to do other things with their money. And that is not the child's fault that they choose to do that. And so while I feel like we do need to hold people accountable, we need to make sure our kids are not getting punished at the helm of holding them responsible. That being said, what I am proposing, or what I am suggesting, is the same thing that you're saying. I mean, if they're not paying now, are they gonna pay? And so, but we have to increase something. We have to start somewhere, because of what has also already been said. We've been kicking this can down the road for too long. So let's start somewhere. And what I'm asking the board to consider is to consider a 50-cent across the board increase rather than a 75-cent to $1 increase, so that our families are easing into it, and let's see what happens with.
Stephanie?
Number one, policy committee, would you guys want so that our practices and our policies sync up?
Yeah, remember the number. Yeah.
8205.
And then I guess the other part is that my understanding is that the increase to our meal costs is not to offset the families that are not paying for food. It's to offset the actual cost of meals. And so it's a whole separate issue that is a significant issue and needs to be dealt with and handled very carefully, where the children don't have to bear the burden of that, but the raising the cost is a whole separate thing from that accountability piece that we're also talking about kind of together.
Andrew?
Andrew Shukar. Now with the offsetting, I totally understand what you're saying. We're offsetting the food costs, but we're contracted through Cisco, right? That's who our food's contracted through? No?
No.
Do we have a food contractor?
Yes, we do.
Have they looked into different options, or is
So
it
week
just?
to week, so when you buy food from the supplier, if the price goes up, in some cases, they'll even get to where they're 2 days out. If you want to order something and you want it at a certain price, you pay for it right then, and they'll keep it for 2 days. Food's very volatile, and so they're not gonna lock down on some long-term deal.
Right. But where we come from, there was always different contracts. You'd contract through somebody and the prices would fluctuate, but you wouldn't be under certain scrutiny by the fact that they're like, oh, well, we're gonna have 30% increase even though under contract. I get week by week or whatever, but
Well, I mean, it's
having,
FSA or Cisco.
US Foods, I believe.
Okay.
So it is. Trevor?
Trevor Motley. I guess I was looking at the rate sheet and I don't see a proposed staff. This rate sheet, and currently staff pays almost double what the student meal is. So I guess I'd just like to know what that is. And then another comment that I have is maybe part of the problem with collecting bills is, as an employee here, I don't get a bill notice until I hit like $70 on my lunch account. Right? And so like at that point, if I'm a family who's struggling, like, oh shoot, $70, I can't pay that. And if I knew like, hey, when it was at $5 or $10, maybe I'd be more apt to pay along the way, right? So maybe we need to get billing under control.
I do think I'll have superintendent answer the second question. I do think the billing is working, but I realize not everybody is going to respond to Infinite Campus, but I think the Infinite Campus notification is highly effective. Staff don't get it. I get it. I'm sharing, that's what I'm getting at. Staff don't get it, but from a parent perspective, it is not 70, it is 50 cents.
Yeah.
You are notified immediately. And so the Infinite, now, is everybody reading Infinite Campus? Can't control that, but if they're not gonna read if they're not gonna open Infinite Campus message, are they gonna open a piece of mail that they get or that goes to their PO box in town that they check once a month?
Sure.
So I think in defense of the district, Infinite Campus is working, staff aren't on Infinite Campus from that perspective, totally understand what you're asking, don't have a solution. I'll defer. Did you and the food service director have a recommendation for staff meal prices?
I don't have that now, but that number is, I'm almost certain, I have to double check and verify it's set by the DI or the minimum amount per meal.
Oh, okay.
I guess my question would be, if I'm gonna have to pay more than a student meal, I should get an adult portion, right? Like, getting the same amount that the student gets and paying double or more than double, that's not equitable. So I think that that's something that this district needs to look at, because I hear a lot of it from other staff members, in the high school, that that's a problem. So.
Okay. Right, is there, this is an action item, is there action?
I would move that we increase the meals as proposed. I think it's gonna get worse, not better. And every time we rob our general fund, and that comes out of things we get to deal with other things in the school. And if we keep going backwards, sooner or later, you're gonna have to catch it up. It's the world we live in. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept this proposal.
There's a second. Been moved and seconded to, increase school meal prices as presented, by the superintendent and the district food services director. For final discussion.
I'd say, Fran, thank you for putting those numbers together. I feel value in what we've got in front of us, but I really appreciate the thought behind it. Thank you.
Further final comment. All those in favor of accepting the increase as presented in the packet, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Nay.
Motion passes, voice vote. We have one dissent. Did you record that or you need that more specific?
No.
Okay, all right, I know you have to report that. Okay. All right, couple items to dispose of through district processes. These have been deemed obsolete, unsuitable for district use, for educational use. And the first one, and there's information about it, is a CNC machine.
I don't have information on that.
What's that?
I don't have the information.
You don't have the information on that. I certainly understand. So I am not an expert on this either, but there is there's a CNC machine in the school agriculture and technology department, purchased, I don't know how long ago, but a number of reasons that it is not appropriate educationally anymore. But yet it is not a throwaway item either. There's some value to it. So there are folks here who have knowledge of that. Would the board be interested in having more information, or is this letter enough?
And if you, I emailed them from Riley who responded to detail. I could read the email, but if there are questions, he's here to answer those. But at the same time, I do want to point out on the, one of your, supplements in your packet in January of 2011, on the front page of this, equipment disposal, you can see the cost of the Tormac and ATC machines. That was the original cost. So that gives you an idea of what we paid up front. And as far as minimum bid, the suggestion of the value of this at this point, and I wouldn't know any better because it's not my area, but is anywhere from $250 to $500. Is that correct, Mr.?
So I went online and did some poking around, and a machine of similar vintage is, we might be able to get like $2,000 tops out of it. So I think if you set a minimum bid at like $250 or $500, you might get somebody to buy it. I'd hate to set a minimum bid at like $2,000 and then have it sit in the shop for the next 3 years trying to get a bid. So I guess, I don't know. That's what I said in my email to Mr. Tennis this morning, was I'd recommend you post a bid lower than what I'm seeing him. So.
Don't we also have the right, to refresh my memory, to,
Refuse bid.
right, as long as we declared it up front?
Yeah.
So we don't-
You can set minimum bid, you can refuse bids, you.
Right, but we have to make the motion up front. We can't put something up for disposal and then say, oh, we want to refuse that bid. But if we make a motion today that says this item's up for disposal, there is no minimum bid, but we reserve the right to refuse any of the bids that come in.
I think that's a good idea. It doesn't set people up for expectation that they may be refused. I think it's
Yes.
the right thing to do.
Yes.
And I guess you guys have my letter, but both Josette and I have maybe some contacts that we'll reach out to and try to drum up some interest for it. The goal would be that the funds come back to the program so that we can put those funds toward the new plasma table. The plasma table we have is currently in disrepair, and we'll buy the company that makes it. And so that's something that we're trying to generate. So, and we don't have an extra $37,000 sitting around to make that purchase right now. So.
I think that would put us in the best position and be the most fair too. No publicly stated minimum bid, but we're going to refuse any bid that we think is unreasonable. Relatively high value items. So further, public questions or comments?
Do we need to state on that those funds are going to be put forth to a new piece of equipment for the ag shop?
I think that'd be very appropriate in motion. That'd be just fine. Board action on this first, item up for disposal. Tormac 1100.
Stuff you're good at more than I got.
No, you guys sounded like you were on a roll.
Move to dispose of the Tormac 1100 and put it up for no minimum bid with the possibility to refuse a bid if it's unreasonable deemed by us, and the funds returned back to the ag shop for hopefully us getting a new piece of equipment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the disposal of PNC machine, no minimum bid with the right to refuse any bid that comes in and consider the future of the back to the ag program. All those in favor, please say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. AP history textbooks are next on the list. I don't think they have the same value. So,
Looking at the wrong country.
yep, looks like there are 25 of them that are recommended for disposal. Circa 2015, it looks like. So, any questions or anything else you need to know on disposing of those?
Have we already replaced them? Are we,
These are, they're not
Just
being
them?
used. Yeah.
gotcha, thank you.
Right. Their action, Stephanie?
I'm happy to make a motion to dispose of the undesirable AP history textbooks as presented.
Is there a second? Been moved and seconded, dispose of the AP textbooks. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. we have in front of us sinking fund CDs and the reinvestment. We have maturity dates of July 28th and August 6th. So they're both before our next regularly scheduled meeting. One's at Rocky Mountain. There is $4.6 million.
Oh, please. And then. Oh, yeah. You're.
And the other right now is at Farmer State Bank, and there's $577,000 in it. And we have, Christie can provide more detail, but we've got a reinvestment proposal from Rocky Mountain Bank with this. And then, what else can you add to this conversation, Christie?
There really isn't a lot. It's pretty straightforward. So, 6 month and 12 month CDs, both of these, are the sinking fund, as you can see on the spreadsheet with all of the various CDs, does not come due until June of 2026. So, it's kind of up to you guys what you want to do, if you'd like to do it for 12 months or 6 months. It's a little easier just on me, not to have to go every 6 months to review stuff. But, totally up to you in terms of the best percentage rate. Clearly, the 6 month rate is a little bit better at the 5.07. But the other rates are pretty competitive as well. I know the rates have been, pretty steady. You can see that they're definitely good in comparison to what we had. So, I don't know. Up to you on what you'd like to do. I mean, my recommendation is to go with the best rate.
We only had one bank apply with an offer.
No, there's two, that's why I passed out the.
Oh, sorry, it's the supplement. Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's confusing.
You got that one.
Yeah, I passed out everything and highlighted it.
Being objectives as presented, excluding number 2 to be discussed at a later date.